So maybe I can just quickly check in with them about that. Right, it's going to become everything equally. I see. You can't target. Okay.
Please.
Namaste, welcome friends. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to get started in just a few moments. Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm in court. I don't know if I should say you may be seated or if we should have Mataji. I think it'll mean more coming from her. So in the meantime, I would just request if we can just please sign in. And even if you feel like, you already get emails and, just to help us to better serve the community, we just ask that everyone please sign in. And as I said, we're going to give it just a few more minutes. We have students and guests and faculty and staff who may be coming immediately from a class or a meeting, so we want to give them a little bit of time to arrive. Yeah, so I'm
Part of camp.
Well, good evening, everyone. We'll get started. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to this very special wisdom talk on the art of spiritual practice. My name is Vineet Chander, and I serve as one of the deans in the Office of Religious Life here at Princeton University and the Hindu chaplain on campus. This evening's talk is sponsored by the Office of Religious Life Hindu Life program, which is currently in its 15th year. Tonight, we're so honored and delighted to have with us the revered Pravrajika Divyanandaprana Mataji, a respected monastic teacher and member of the Sri Sarada Mutt based in New Delhi, India. Affectionately known as Mataji, she is currently editor of the English journal Samvit, published from New Delhi, and has been principal of the Nivedita Vidya Mandir School from 2014 to 2019. In addition to her deep study of the Ramakrishna Vivekananda lineage that she is a part of, Mataji specializes in the area of Yoga Vedanta philosophy. She has extensively studied the key texts associated with these twin schools of Indian philosophy, which include the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Raja Yoga, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita. She additionally has focused on the works of Adi Shankaracharya, including Viveka Chudamani and other key texts, as well as the more recent spiritual teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. A sought-after speaker, Pravrajika Divyanandaprana Mataji has been invited to address a number of prestigious institutions in India and internationally. In addition to being a regular speaker at IIT Delhi, where she offers courses on Yoga Vedanta every semester, and these courses are featured on the college's official YouTube channel, so you're welcome to check that out, although not now. So in addition to that, she also lectures at IIT Madras, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Mumbai, IIT Kanpur, IISc Bangalore, Delhi University, and many others. Internationally, she has taught classes or delivered lectures in South Africa, Ireland, Great Britain, UAE, and Canada. In the past decade, she has spoken at Imperial College, London University, and here in the US at Purdue, at Loyola Marymount, at North Carolina State, at Duke University, and at Seton Hall. Mataji is currently, I'm told, in the middle of her college tour, and so are we number 4 in the, that's not a ranking, that's just the order of her travels. And from here, I believe she goes on to MIT and then Carnegie Mellon and the University of Pittsburgh. Mataji is also the author of 2 highly regarded books, Science of Consciousness and Self-Discovery, and both are available on the Amazon.in site. Divyanandaprana Mataji will speak for about 50 minutes or so, and then I'm going to invite my dear friend and colleague who's with us, Dr. Nick J. Vogue, who will offer a brief response to Mataji's talk and will ask the first question, thus opening up the Q&A. Dr. Vogue is a Senior Associate Director of the McGraw Center for Teacher and Learning here at Princeton University. He is also a very well-regarded TEDx speaker and the author of Life Beyond Grades, which is published by Cambridge University Press. Dr. Vogue is an admirer of Mataji's online discourses, and he is eager to engage with her on what these teachings might have to contribute to contemporary audiences, particularly to university students. So with that said, I would love to turn it over to our guest speaker. Please join me in giving Pravrajika Divyanandaprana Mataji a very warm Princeton University welcome.
We will begin with a prayer. Om yo brahmanam vidadhati purvam yo vai vedanscha prahinoti tasmai tamhadevam atmabuddhi prakasham mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye. Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. A very good evening to all of you. Namaste. And thank you for the warm welcome in Princeton. I'm so touched because these are all citadels of great learning. And in the Indian spiritual tradition, we have always revered all forms of knowledge. Every form of knowledge can take you to the knowledge of what we call Brahma Vidya if it is penetrated into. It's like that. So Vivekananda always wanted that universities should be points where we are able to discuss the deepest truths and the existential questions of life. So, and I'm really glad that so many of you are interested in the topic art of spiritual practice, sadhana. And I should thank Vinit Chandraji for selecting this topic. So I'm going to go very deep into the spiritual practices as we have them in yoga philosophy and in Vedant. So when I use the word yoga, I actually mean the meditative practice and the yoga philosophy. I don't mean those asanas and, those physical exercises. And by Vedant, of course, I mean the Vedanta philosophy. So we will go deep into the spiritual practices given to us by these two philosophies. But as an introduction, I would like to give you one beautiful incident from the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Many of you, I'm sure, have uh, read his life and known that the state of God consciousness in which he lived. It's so touching when you see a practical demonstration of what we are going to discuss like that in a human body. And he was constantly in the state of samadhi. And from that state, he gave out some very deep, very elevating truths about the nature of human consciousness and human life, which I'm sure all of you are very interested in. So, this incident especially occurred when Narendranath was in Sri Ramakrishna's room in Dakshineshwar. Narendranath, as you know, was the future Vivekananda. So, when he was a young lad and at the feet of the master, he was sitting in front of Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna suddenly told him, "My son, when will you realize God? When will you know the nature of the supreme truth?" And then he said, he gave a very powerful example. He said, "Suppose I give you a cup of sweet syrup, and suppose you were a fly. How would you taste that syrup?" And Narendranath said, "Why, I would sit at the edge of the cup and stick my neck out and lick the nectar, and thus I would taste it, because if I go deep into it, I would drown." And then Sri Ramakrishna said, "But my son, this is not something in which you will drown. If you dive into this nectar, the nectar of immortality, the nectar of pure consciousness, you will become immortal. You will become immortal." So, what is this diving into the nectar of immortality? What does it mean? What does dissolving into consciousness mean? The very nature of spiritual experiences, you know by being. You can't know it as an object because it's your own consciousness. How can you know it as an object? You can never know it like that. But you can be it. You can so deepen your awareness that you can become of the nature of pure consciousness. So, this is when you dissolve into the cup of immortality. You become immortal. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, by thinking of consciousness, can one become unconscious? You know, many times we do these extensive classes on scriptures like Atma Bodh, Upanishads, Panchadashi, all this. And then the day when I have 2, 3 classes on these subjects, I'm telling you, I can't sleep that night. I get sleep only after 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or something like that. It's such a strange phenomenon. Later I understood it's only because we are discussing pure awareness. And when you do 2, 3 classes in a day, your mind is, even just to dwell on it mentally, gives you this experience. And what to speak of when your consciousness actually becomes one with that divine consciousness or dissolves into it. You are one with Brahman. So, what is the nature of the practice that takes us into experiences like these? This is what we are going to study in the art of spiritual practice, because it's a very moot point. You know, the Buddha used to say, the Buddha would say that it is the absolutely clear mind, scintillating with awareness, that is the key to the ultimate reality. The absolutely clear mind, scintillating with awareness, that is the gateway to whatever we are calling the reality in spiritual life. So, how do we generate these states? You see, it is a state where not just you experience full consciousness, the purest consciousness, but you also experience immense bliss, an absolutely radiant form of attention and bliss, which is so palpable to people who are around these great masters. So I can cite the example of Jesus on the cross. Even in that very painful state, he said, he prayed, "Oh Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do." So what generates this state of mind? The Buddha would radiate such peace around him that for a radius of 2 miles, you could know he's there just by the vibrations in the atmosphere, the peacefulness, the stillness, and the awareness one would feel in his presence. And Sri Ramakrishna, well, his states of samadhi were so frequent that the people who were in his room were always, prepared for it. He hardly needed an excuse to go into samadhi. When he went into it, everybody felt the impact of that state. Their minds would just calm down. When it was bhava samadhi, they would be imbued with that divine emotion. And as if a mob of, half crazy people would be created there, crazy with divine consciousness. So, what generates these very high elevated states of consciousness? This is really a tremendous study, and I'm so glad Princeton gave me this topic, the art of spiritual practice. There's a huge science to it. So, let's go deeply into it. I would say the very first thing required for spiritual practice is a state of sattva, or inner tranquility and harmony. A disturbed mind cannot bring these states nor retain them, even if they come in. So, how do we attain that state of sattva? That is why you see it is so difficult to explain these concepts to young students. This is what makes it difficult. I work with only young people. I'm teaching a whole lot of IITians. You just heard it in the introduction. So many of them are absolutely concentrated and focused, youngsters. But when it comes to the level of sattva, that is really deeply in question, because in their restlessness, they are trying to somehow control and focus. Extremely restless minds, young minds. But if this element of sattva comes into us, and I don't know really how to translate these words from Sanskrit. Sattva actually means deep inner tranquility and harmony, calmness of mind. And when that is there, a certain stillness prevails in the entire system, as a result of which awareness, a deeper awareness dawns in the mind. When there is stillness, there is awareness. When there's too much noise, you can feel it anywhere, the awareness goes. So there's a deep connection between the calmness and tranquility of our mind and the unfoldment of awareness. So that is why the first precondition, and all these pre-qualifications of yoga fall under this, it is to manufacture a sattvic state of mind. Absolutely necessary for spiritual practice. You can just know things for yourself which means the first person research into consciousness is possible if there is a sattvic state of mind. And this is how we are doing consciousness research. I don't have time to tell you about that. Maybe in the Q&A session I can tell you. But a lot of research is going on the science of consciousness and how to discover the deepest levels of consciousness we are capable of. So this is the first point which I wanted to mention. And the second most important thing is our ability to stall thoughts. Our ability to stall thinking. Pause thinking. So the very starting of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, you know how they begin? I can give you the first 4 sutras here. They start with Atha Yoga Anushasanam. Now we begin the study of yoga. The second sutra says, Yogastu Chitta Vritti Nirodh. Yoga means the cessations of the incessant modifications of the mind. Why should you do that? Why is it important? Because the third sutra says, Tada Drashta Swarupe Avasthanam. So that the witnessing awareness is able to go back to its source. So that the witnessing awareness can come to the forefront of your mind and thoughts can recede. So you must develop the technique to stop thought, at least temporarily. Pause your thinking, thought process. And otherwise, what would happen? That's the fourth sutra telling you, Vritti Sarupyam Itaratra. Otherwise, you will be just carried away by your thoughts. Now you see how scientific what they are telling us is. It's absolutely scientific. They are telling us that if you don't develop this technique of stalling mind, thought, you will be carried away by your thoughts. And you sort of get mixed up with them. You are so invested in them. The awareness is just a mental concept. It's not a feeling. It's not a felt reality with you. So this is the problem in yoga, that we think even awareness is a thought. It's a concept. It is not a concept. It is not a thought. It is what you get when you empty mind of thought. Am I right? Check your mind and tell me. Is this making sense? Yes. So the very beginning of yoga, I told you the first 4 sutras, it is about emptying mind. What happens when you empty mind in a perfectly conscious state? Your awareness will increase. You will become deeply aware than identified with some silly thought process, taking you just away from your goals. So this state is a very powerful state. It's completely first person research. Please see. You're doing it. It's your awareness that is coming out. And you will understand this is the very powerful state because your vital energies just get renewed when you are able to enter this state. And you cannot study it in the third person. You cannot study it through an fMRI scan. Although the fMRI scan will give you the clue that the meditative state gives very high gamma radiation and with distributed phase symmetry. So you are in a meditative state. It will give you that clue. But it is a felt reality in your consciousness when you stop the thought process in a completely conscious state and for a considerable period of time. At least for a few seconds, if you can do this, you will become deeply aware without a thought process. In this state, what do you exactly feel? You feel the meditative awareness. You are there, scintillating with the luminosity of awareness, but without a thought, without a vritti, a modification of mind. And it is an absolutely blissful state to be in, because once you are out of it, you understand its value. Once you are out of it, you understand what a powerful state it was. So this is yoga. When I use the word yoga in this presentation, I am referring to this meditative state. I am not referring to those exercises, those asanas. So this state has to be cornered and studied. And the best research you can conduct into this is the research in the first person, which means the practice of meditation. All these elevated states of the masters becomes possible when we enter the realm of yoga, when we understand something by awareness, which is not in the third person. You understand it by yourself, what it means and how powerful this state is. And all of the Indian spiritual heritage is concentrated on making this state, showing us the importance and value of this state. So you have it in almost all our scriptures, even in bhakti scriptures, in the mythologies, in the the Samudra Manthan story and all that. They are supposed to be mythical stories, or just stories invented to tell us some important value, but they are actually pointing to the meditative state and telling you the importance of that state. So, how many of you know the story of the churning of the ocean, Samudra Manthan? Oh, most of you know it. Good, that makes my task easy. So, what is that story exactly telling us? Please see. There is this periodic quarrel between the Devas and the Asuras, and there the number of Devas, because they are dying, their number is decreasing. So they run to Vishnu, the Godhead, and tell him that please give us a means to become immortal, make us immortal. So he says, then you have to acquire that Amrit, that is the drinking which, that nectar, drinking which you will become immortal. Now, this is a kind of allegory, a kind of story trying to tell you you require to churn your mind and dive into the self to become truly immortal. Immortal in the sense, not that your body lives forever, but you touch the self which ever lives, which is ever there, which is eternal in nature. And the body and mind is just what your self is working through. It's something like the clothes we wear. So, self knowledge is being described as the nectar of immortality in this story. So, what's the method for that? So, Vishnu tells them you have to churn the ocean. And for that, the ocean is nothing but our minds. Meditation is churning the mind, churning the ocean to get the Amrit, to get immortality. So then they acquire, these two have to unite, these Devas and Asuras, because the Devas represent our good thoughts, the Asuras represent our bad thoughts, but you need the whole mind to be able to meditate. Nobody ever meditated with a part of his mind. It's not possible. You have to bring all the forces, the entire vital energy to play for meditation to become possible. And that is why the story says that the Devas and Asuras shook hands and decided to churn the ocean in order to get Amrit. And then what happened? They acquired a churning rod. It was Mount Meru. And that symbolizes, it is symbolic of your spine. The spine is the axis of the universe, because it is along the spine that the highest vital energy can flow, which makes your mentation and perceptions possible. So it's the spine that is being described as the mountain Meru, and then the rope, the Vasuki snake, is nothing but the Kundalini Shakti. Again, the arousal of your vital energy and its flow upwards so that you unfold the deepest levels of awareness. This is it's a paradigm from the Tantras and the Yoga Shastra, just to tell us that if you handle your vital energies properly, you can unfold the highest awareness. I'll be showing you graphs on all this, because today we have converted it to a whole lot of, we have formulated courses on this in the language of science. So I'll be showing that to you. But the idea is this, that there are means to unfold the highest awareness. And one way of doing it is to commit your vital energies along those higher chakras so that you can manifest the highest consciousness. So then the churning began and all sorts of things came up, isn't it? First, there were all those precious gems and pearls coming out of the ocean. What it means to say is your good feelings and consolations and reflections and good emotions, devotion, all this will come out of your mind when you churn it. But at some point, even halahal will come out, the poison. And then who gulped up the poison? It was Lord Shiva. Self-knowledge will dissolve the halahal. This is what they mean to say, and they're putting it like that. And then Mother Lakshmi comes up, the wealth of your mind your power of attention and creativity and anything that you have within you will just come out, will manifest. That is the wealth of your mind. And then a whole lot of things come out. Finally, the Amrit comes. And then there's a kind of fight between the Devas and the Asuras, but Vishnu comes and solves the problem and makes sure he empowers only the Devas with Amrit. So here Vishnu stands for our higher intelligence, or what is called the Dhi Shakti. In the scriptures, it's used as Dhi. It only means the higher intelligence, which actually is able to make this difference between pure awareness and mind. So it knows what to empower, whom to empower. So it will empower your awareness, deepening which you come to the state of pure consciousness or the Amrit. This is the story of, it's actually depicting the entire process of yoga, but in the form of a allegorical story. So this is all pervasive in Indian spiritual literature, these kind of stories. Now I would like to go into what is required in order to come to this level of meditation. See, they are very clear about it. The pre-qualifications are huge in both yoga and Vedanta. I would just like to mention them before I show them to you on a PPT, the actual scheme of yoga. So in yoga, Yoga Sutras, you have these yama and niyam. These are the pre-qualifications. Since we are going to study the art of spiritual practice, these are the preliminaries. So it involves first ahimsa. We know the words. I think ahimsa, you know very well, it means a non-violent mind. A very calm mind, a peaceful mind. Satya, the ability to stick to truth. Asteya. Asteya is actually non-covetousness, non-stealing, which means not appropriating to the ego what does not belong to one. So all this will stop this outward going tendency of the mind. And then you have brahmacharya, which is chastity and continence. This is practiced in order to keep your vital energies at a particular level. And that helps in the unfoldment of the highest awareness. That is why this discipline. Celibacy is insisted upon in all religions for this simple reason, that it is your vital energy that ultimately helps you unfold the highest awareness. And then aparigraha. Aparigraha again means not taking gifts or not, to keep your karmic account clear, not taking what you don't require. And then shaucha, this is the niyama discipline, which is cleanliness of body and mind. You have santosha, which is contentment. Tapas, some amount of austerity. It will keep your vital energies vibrant. It's so very important, the austere life. A whole lot of my students by themselves have adopted to this in their own way. And they stand up and tell me so boldly that, Mataji, this keeps our energies in full flow. Just the practice of these disciplines. So tapasya, austerity, means that it comes from tap dhatu, to heat up. Heat up what? Heat up the energy that has been given to you so that you are able to acquire the highest knowledge. So this is tapas, mandatory to spiritual discipline practice. And then you have swadhyay, some amount of deep knowledge of the scriptures, a daily kind of exposure to the scriptures, because the vrittis of your mind have to be spiritualized, the modifications of our mind. That is why dwelling on all this becomes very important. And then Ishwar Pranidhan, which is, of course, devotion and surrender to the divine. So these are mandatory preliminary disciplines of yoga required for spiritual practice. And Vedanta has its own set of preliminary disciplines, what is called the sadhan chatushtay. I will briefly just mention it here. The first discipline there is vivek, which is philosophical discretion between what is real, what is unreal, what is temporary, what is permanent, and leaning towards what is eternal and permanent, which is vairagya, which means actually it is translated as detachment, but actually what it means to say is you are investing in the higher life. You are investing your vital energies into that which is permanent and more satisfying. And then you have the Shat Sampati, the group of 6 qualities which very much help us make the spiritual life real and vibrant. So these 6 qualities include Shama, deep inner calmness; Dhamma, sense control; Uparati, ability to withdraw mind and focus it on our goals. Withdraw mind from objects and ability to focus it. Titiksha, Titiksha is the ability to bear with everything, forbearance. Because if we are too impatient, we will nullify our efforts. So Titiksha, and then Shraddha. Shraddha is Astikya Buddhi, Shankaracharya says. It's so beautiful. It's a positive, affirmative state of mind where you take things properly. You have deep faith in what you're doing. That is Shraddha. Absolutely required for spiritual practice. And then you have Samadhan, which is deep focus, the mind riveted to the goal. Without this form of focus, you can't get this. So even the method of inquiry which we do in Vedant depends on this. That's why, in the Indian spiritual heritage, usually the way is from yoga to Vedant. You bring great stability to the mind through the practice of yoga, all these steps, and then you enter into real meditative inquiry and the practice of Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan. So it serves as a stepping stone towards the actual goal of Vedant, which is the realization of Brahman or pure consciousness, what we say. So, see, all this may make it look like, oh, it's quite complicated, it's a huge scheme we have to pass through. Not so. Because if you really want the goal, if you really want it, you will have it. You'll find your way to it. The fourth discipline in Sadhan Chatushta is Mumukshutvam. If you have this, you will have everything else. Mumukshutvam is the great yearning to know the truth as it is. Who doesn't have this, tell me? Which means we have all these other preliminaries, sort of inherent, intrinsic to our consciousness. They are there, waiting to be practiced, waiting to come out. So don't get frightened with all the pre-qualifications. I always tell my students, that is being told to you so that you attain to a certain amount of harmony and balance in your everyday life. Just aim at the goal. That is the most important thing. So now this is what we are going to do. We are going to go into the practice because as I told you, the actual art of spiritual practice, we will be knowing all the theory about it, but practice is practice. It has ultimately to be done, to be known. And the nature of this experience is you know it by being it. You cannot know it as an object. So there is no method of knowledge. I can use inquiry, I can keep arguing and, doing Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan all my life. But it will only come to you as a very powerful insight in a state of meditative awareness. It will come to you like that. So to be able to generate that, let me go into this PPT. Yes, I always give these examples as a preliminary slide. You look at their level of intelligence and awareness, and you will see that obviously this is the highest evolution of the human being. They radiated a level of consciousness which could transform minds just like that. We know how difficult it is to transform our child, isn't it? To change the mind of our children. They transformed millions and they continue to do so. What kind of a mind was that? And what realization was that? So they have exuded and radiated the highest level of intelligence and bliss. And how this was made possible, we will go into it. See, I told you the preliminary pre-qualifications of yoga, but I want to take you actually through the yogic process described by Patanjali. He calls it the basic scheme of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and then there is an advanced scheme. What do these, the actual discipline of yoga take us into? What does it bring for us? So this is the basic scheme of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Please watch this slide. Here, yoga sees it like this. It sees our problem to be, of course, ignorance, but due to what? Due to the coming together of Purusha and Prakriti. Consciousness and mind have got mixed up. Just now check and see. This is how we think of we think we are mind, body and mind. Consciousness, well, others are speaking of it, but we don't know what it is. So this is the coming together of Purusha and Prakriti in the language of yoga. Purusha stands for consciousness and Prakriti stands for mind, and of course all the other evolutes of the mind. And the coming together of Purusha and Prakriti generates avidya, ignorance. You don't know the nature of the self or consciousness as it is. This is avidya. And the way to overcome this avidya, Patanjali says, is through the understanding of kleshas. Avidya actually generates, klesha means afflictions of mind. Afflictions. They are of the nature of attachment, fear, anger. He calls them avidya, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh, all these. Hatred, negativities in the mind, this constant overflow of thought, and we don't know how to stop it, and a whole lot of negativities. All this falls under kleshas. So deep within, somebody said most men live lives of quiet desperation. Deep within, we feel that. And the way out of this also, that is why it is described. And the mind can really create a hell out of heaven and a heaven out of hell. We all know that. And that's why the importance of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. It actually is a wonderful manual on mind management. And it gives you such deep ideas on mind management, some of which I will tell you here. One famous humorist, he once said, "My life is full of disasters, none of which ever happened." That's the nature of the mind. You just thought, your thoughts made your life so miserable and you can't stop them. So this is the state of kleshas, afflicted mind. How to overcome this? That is why the Ashtanga Yoga. This is how he describes it, Patanjali. Ashtanga Yoga is the preliminary discipline towards the attainment of samadhi in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras. See, I have condensed a lot of information into these slides. So it's packed with information actually. Ashtanga Yoga, what are the steps of Ashtanga Yoga? It starts with yam, niyam, then you have asan, which is your ability to sit for long periods of time in complete stillness. Pranayam, your ability to regulate breath, breathing. And then after that you have yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, ability to withdraw your mind and focus it on your object of meditation. Then you have dharana. Dharana is that state where there is uninterrupted single thought flow, single track thought flow towards one object. Not the 4 tracks which are usually running, Yes, single track. That is dharana. And dhyan means pratyaya ekatanata dhyanam. Beautiful definition of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. It means your thought, as it were, got riveted on the object. Doesn't move from there. A long drawn out thought, you can say, on the object. So the object has absolutely occupied your field of awareness. There is no distinction between you and the object now. And if this state of dhyan continues for 144 seconds, which is no joke, it will be samadhi. Dhyan itself becomes samadhi. So that radiant attention with which only the object of your meditation reigns in your mind, and you're absolutely dissolved into it, absorbed in it, that is samadhi. And this is a state of the highest awareness. It's called prajna by Patanjali. It is a special type of knowledge, prakrishtena jnana, that which gives you a special, very, very elevated kind of knowledge is prajna. So meditation, please remember, should not end up in sleep. It's happening to many people, I'm so sorry to say. But meditation should yield the highest awareness. That is the purpose of the meditative state. Your awareness just unfolds completely. And this state is so powerful, the state of prajna, that you know just like that, without thinking, without objective data collected from somewhere. So all other forms of knowledge compared to this, they take it as secondary, you know. In the Patanjali, actually in the commentaries, you will find that. Why Brahma Vidya Sarva Vidya Pradishtham is for this reason, you just know. There's no explanation to how you know. You have become so full, potent with scintillating awareness, the luminosity of pure being, that you just know everything in that state. It is the highest form of knowledge. That is why it's called prajna. So samadhi, the state of samadhi, is the culmination of Ashtanga Yoga. The purpose of yoga is this, not just good health, mental peace. That's all by the way. You know, it's okay. But the highest knowledge is the goal. And then this is not all. You know, in the scheme of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, this basic scheme is just, again, just the first part. Let me go to the next one. See, the advanced scheme of Patanjali Yoga Sutra is once you enter the state of samadhi, you have entered Sampragnat Yoga. From here begins the advanced scheme of Patanjali Yoga Sutras. What does Sampragnat mean? It means with prajna. Now, whatever you do, whatever you see, whatever you hold in your mind, it will be with that prajna. That prajna never leaves you. It's an awakened awareness or consciousness. It will never leave you. You have a different perception altogether to anything because of this prajna. It's a kind of inner light shining forth all the time. So you enter Sampragnat Yoga, and the next step to this is a more concentrated form of prajna called Ritambara Prajna. The very meaning of Ritambara is very interesting. It means truth-bearing intuition. It is a knowledge or an insight which gives you the whole truth of your being in that state. This is Ritambara Prajna. It's a state of supreme knowledge. This is all we can say from this. You see, words and mind cannot describe this. Thoughts and words. Raman Maharshi used to say, words are the great-grandsons of this state. This state is the great-grandfather. They can't describe it. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasas. How can words describe this? So Ritambara Prajna is a most powerful state of pure being where you develop Vivek Khyati. Vivek Khyati is that stage where you are able to clearly discern awareness from buddhi, from the higher intelligence. That is thinking, discriminating, discerning. You are able to see the nature of pure awareness clearly. You are able to distinguish awareness from the buddhi sattva. This is the state of Vivek Khyati. And that is why you come to the conclusion, Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya. You come to the conclusion that indeed this is the highest knowledge. Vivek Khyati yields that level of understanding. And thence you enter Asampragnat Yoga, which means even the level of prajna which you generated is a small thing now. You are fully enveloped in the state of divine consciousness. And you transcend the normal limitations of knowledge. You know, all knowledge has epistemic limits. Do you know it? We think in time, space, and causation, and the mind itself is bound, and we are searching for the ultimate reality through such equipment. So this will break all these barriers, Asampragnat Yoga, and usher you into the state of Kaivalya. Kaivalya means the separation of Purusha and Prakriti, so that Keval Purusha remains. You have separated consciousness from the mind stuff. Only pure consciousness reigns. Kevala Chaitanya. That is Kaivalya. That is the aim and end of yoga. So you have effectively separated Prakriti and Purusha. This is how it is seen in yoga. In, in other words, you have attained what you truly are. You have attained who you truly are. You are pure being of the nature of existence, consciousness, and bliss. You attain to that. But this is the scheme, step by step. Actually, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it is sutra. They are aphorisms. You can put them in one A4 page, but they are potent and packed with knowledge. So much of knowledge that the commentaries on Patanjali Yoga Sutras are this big. Yes, it will take you a lifetime actually to go through that. I study all this after my meditation. Every day after my morning meditations, I just sit with these big volumes and it makes so much of sense suddenly. What they are saying is something so deep and meaningful that I have come to the conclusion this is the highest knowledge, really worthy of Princeton. These great citadels of knowledge should value this form of subjective knowledge very much, because this is about our consciousness. What is the point in knowing everything about the world and not knowing who I am? Tell me. We know what's happening on Jupiter just now, and beyond that also, that Voyager is sending us all the data, all the news. But I don't know what is my awareness about, who I am. What an irony. So this knowledge addresses these questions. That is why you see these are all very powerful systems. But I don't have much time. Let me go into the next slide. The practice of samadhi yields superlative happiness. Let's go through Vivekananda, what he says on this. Vivekananda says, when a minute portion of energy travels along a nerve fiber and causes reaction, the perception is either dream or imagination. But when by the power of long internal meditation, the vast mass of energy stored up travels along the sushumna and strikes the centers, the reaction is tremendous, immensely more intense than the reaction of sense perception. It is supersensuous perception. This is samadhi. This is what it brings to you. Now, there's a correspondence theory to this. Each level of your energy yields a different level of consciousness. The first three levels, what are these levels about? I want you to know they are junction points where you can concentrate vital energies. So if you go to your internet, they will give you all sorts of ideas about chakras and this. And they are junction points where you can concentrate vital energies. You can do it yourself. And the idea is the first three levels give you only body consciousness and only a level of sensual joy. The fourth level relieves one of body consciousness. That's the anahata level, the level of the heart, relieves one of body consciousness, and hence happiness here has to do with intellectual joy and the joy of higher awareness. So also the higher the level, the subtler, happier and purer the dimension of your experience. So whichever model we use, for every tier of higher awareness, there is a corresponding level of happiness. And as we move upward, we realize we are moving inward. You are interiorizing your consciousness. Every tier yields a fixed level of fulfillment. Any activity on the tier will yield the same level of fulfillment. So fulfillment is not activity related, but awareness related. This is the big theory of yoga, which you will find in various ways in different systems. But all it means to say is handle your vital energies properly so as to manifest the highest levels of awareness. Now, let me go into the conclusions of yoga as a result. See, these are graphs I created for those IITians because they understand it this way only. So, the first is the graph of happiness against time. Usually, we have a base level of happiness, a baseline of happiness, it's called. And it is at different levels in different people. And when good things happen, well, okay, you enjoyed it and you came back to the base level. When bad things happen, again, you go up to the base level. Now, what yoga does for you, the practice of meditation does for you is, first of all, it will regulate this mood fluctuation. It will bring you into a fairly equanimous state of mind, and it will increase the baseline of happiness itself. So you are raising the bar of happiness actually through awareness, through yoga. This is the science of spiritual practice. This is what it does for you. And then go to graph B. See, it is telling you the function between awareness and vital energy. If you systematically raise vital energy in your own system through those, I told you the means, your awareness will unfold automatically, because when you are vitally alive, full of vitality, you have a deep sense of awareness. Please check this out and see. We know everything about external energies. We don't know much about vital energy, as I'm telling you. So that is why this is a very important, this is the graph of sadhana. When you commit vitality, vital energy in a specific way and develop the technique to raise it, you will unfold the highest awareness. And the C and D are the graphs showing you the connection between happiness and awareness. You know, the happiness is nothing but an exponential function of your awareness. The higher your awareness gets, the happier you will be. And the lower your awareness, the more worry and fear and negativities can assault your mind, find place in your mind. Isn't this true? Obviously. The clarity of our awareness ensures our happiness. So happiness is an exponential function of your awareness. That is depicted in those two graphs. So with my students, I always tell them that you see, you want to lead the happy life. That's why everything, all the striving. So understand these fundamental equations, and you will be able to manufacture happiness right from within you. You will get the capacity to do that, because if you only rely on synthetic joys, which means you require the mobile to keep you engaged and YouTube to keep you entertained, then at some point you will get fed up with that. You'll get bored with it. And what if you don't have the gadget? You'll go into depression. So better to try to find out how I can remain happy within myself, by myself. These are the graphs which are telling us all this. So there's a lot more to say about this, but I have limited time. And Vinitji is right here, ready for the Q&A. So let me just go to the next slide. I want to go into this, the science of sadhana. In Vedanta, we use the method of inquiry, isn't it? Inquiry and meditation, both, nididhyasan, to know. So how exactly is it done? I'm putting it into 3 slides and showing you these slides. How to know the knower. See, first thing is what we are calling avrita chakshu, the inward turned mind. How do you generate that? Turning the light within will mean turning the light of awareness to its source. So the first way of doing that is you shut out the modifications of your mind so that your mind does not go outward. That is why the practices of yoga. The second is you work to intensify chidabhas or reflected consciousness in the mind, which means how to make the mind more aware. And all spiritual practice is meant for this. Please know, all spiritual practice is meant for this. How to become more aware than identified with something. So the empty mind filled with awareness is the secret I told you. How to generate that. And Vedanta will tell you, you see, none of these methods will actually lead you to the source. Only you must clean the lens, clean the mind, so clean it up that the light will sparkle, the light of your own awareness. Sri Ramakrishna used to give this formula. Pure mind is equal to pure buddhi is equal to pure Atman. You know the Atman just when the mind becomes totally clean and clear. And if the mind is turbid, foamy, you can't get it. Just like a lake. If the surface is not wavy and the water is clean, not turbid, you can see what is at the bottom of the lake, just like that. So you see, generating the pure aham pratyay will reflect the pure self. And this is how you can know the self. What does this mean? The I sense within us is called the aham pratyay, the sense of I. Now you please check and see, do it right now. The sense of I within you, can it stay without any attribute, without any upadhi, without thinking, oh, I'm a professor of Princeton, I am such and such, I have this family, I am so and so, I was born without all this. Can it stay by itself? Who am I without all this? Can you track that? That is called the aham pratyay, the pure I. I in itself. So if you are able to generate this pure aham pratyay, it will reflect the nature of the self. This is what this is telling us. This is actually Vedant. See, now if I ask you a simple question, do you find your body in your awareness or awareness in your body? Come on, tell me. You find your body in your awareness. So what does this imply? Your awareness is primary. You are finding your body and your thoughts in your awareness. So awareness is primarily I then. This is what they are telling you. The pure aham is awareness. You being Mr. So and so, Miss so and so is all secondary. That's the personality which you wear. Like we wear our clothes, but that's not the real you. The unchanging you is this pure aham pratyay. So if you can generate it and maintain it, through meditative practice, you will come to the knowledge of the self. This is the idea. So any inquiry into the self will follow this kind of a method. Can I ask you one more question? See, are you aware of the body or is the body aware of you? Tell me. You are aware of the body. And are you aware of your thoughts or your thoughts in some way are aware of you? You are aware of the thoughts. So what does this mean? Tell me. I am aware of my body. My body is not aware of me. Indeed, that's the fact about our experience. That means awareness is primarily me. And I find my body and mind in my awareness. This is how you experience life. But you know, the ego has sometimes becomes so big that we start thinking, no, I am primarily a personality, a person, an individual. Individuality is really big burden. And then I'm thinking of awareness. You are not thinking of awareness, you are thinking in awareness. Am I right? Am I making sense? Yes. So you see, awareness is our primary nature. And you can catch it in its purest form just through these techniques. This is the key difference between ordinary perception and self-knowledge. See, in ordinary perception, what we call paroksha anubhuti, it is based on vrittis, which means thoughts about objects. But self-knowledge is entirely aham pratyay based. It is based on cornering and tracking the pure I sense within you. The path of Raman Maharshi, Koham, who am I? He asked. Then the medium of perception in paroksha anubhuti is very dense. The mind can have all sorts of thoughts. But in self-knowledge, the medium is absolutely clear and becomes like a mirror. Clarity of mind, the practice of yoga and meditation, that is why is important for inquiry to work for you. And then paroksha anubhuti is about intermittent awareness because you know it's partially invested in the thought process. Yes, you're interested in your thoughts are enlivened by that awareness. So you are involved in the thought process. But aparoksha anubhuti is there's no intermittent awareness. There is complete blossoming of awareness because you put down the thought process itself. And paroksha anubhuti, that's why it's mediated knowledge, heavily mediated by a whole lot of factors, including your equipment. But aparoksha anubhuti is unmediated knowledge. That is why it is aparoksha anubhuti. It's immediate, unmediated. Self-knowledge is like that. You just become what you always were, are, and will be. It is knowing by being, its existence itself. So Atma Vichar, which means self-enquiry, seeks to find the foundations of self-awareness by penetrating into the immediate and incontrovertible experience of one's existence as the ego. It is an intuitive process leading to direct mystical experience. See, this is the difference between if you just ask yourself, what gives me the feel of an experience? Well, now, when we just went out to see some of the buildings, and what is it that makes me distinguish so many shades of gray? I could see 10 shades of gray there. You go into that park, you'll see 100 shades of green. What gives me the feel of an experience? It's my awareness. It's my awareness. A non-living entity can inform, cannot experience. That chat GPT lady, you know her well? Yes, you ask her, you know a whole lot of things. She's so creative, my God, how she can turn out original things. And you just ask her, you're so magnificent, but tell me, do you experience what you know? And she will say, I am only programmed to inform and not to experience. She'll tell you that. Because she has no self-awareness, but we are self-aware, so we experience. And the feel of an experience is due to the presence of pure consciousness within you. This is what I'm trying to say. So the nature of consciousness, both consciousness and bliss, are afterglows of a unitary experience of pure being. It's beautifully described by Shankaracharya as Swa Samvedya Swayam Prakashatvat. It is the only experience that does not require proof. By its own effulgence, it is self-evident. Tell me, do you require a torch to see the sun? Do you? In fact, the torch lights up the solar batteries the sun lights up the solar batteries of your torch. Helps you see things. So you don't require anything to see the self, but a pure, clear mind. The pure aham pratyay will take you into that. The experience itself cannot be captured objectively. The experiencer resolves into pure being during the experience. That is why the experience of samadhi is all absorbing. When the mind and prana move, the world of objects takes shape. And when he comes out of it, he concludes in comparison that it was the state of the highest bliss. That is why it is an all-absorbing experience and considered the very culmination of the human evolutionary process. Once somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna, what do you exactly feel in samadhi? What do you feel? And Sri Ramakrishna kept quiet for some time and then said, if a small fish was released from a small pot into the ocean, how would he feel? Would this mean something to you then? Would you understand this way? It's a complete liberation of mind. No more epistemic limits. Your consciousness reaches its source. In fact, you are always that. And as a result, you know where to place your personality, how to drop off the unnecessary content of your mind. How to keep a really clear. When you have a clear mind, full of awareness, you really enjoy life, isn't it? And if we have a totally cluttered mind, how does that feel? Even your cluttered room, so many teenagers move out of their room into the guest room because their room is too cluttered. Mind is like that. Our getaways, it's something similar. We plan our getaways because we want to get out of the mind. So we know where to place the experiences of life once we are able to manufacture these higher states of consciousness. I will conclude with one beautiful example from Raman Maharshi. How many of you have read him? Yes, excellent. See, he could not sign his name. And there were all sorts of people coming to him and asking him for an autograph. Now, how does such a person give a signature? He doesn't even remember his name. Because that mind which has touched this level of consciousness understands its personalities very differently. It actually appears like an object. It doesn't equate with the self. So he could not remember his name. And sometimes he would sign Om. And then still they would pester him. Please put your signature. So one fine day he wrote a beautiful couplet there instead of Om. It's so beautiful, it's so touching. He wrote, Ekam aksharam hridi nirantaram bhasate swayam likhyate katham. One akshar, imperishable word or reality ever shining effulgent in my heart. Bhasate swayam, by itself, self-luminous. Likhyate katham, how do I put it down on paper? What do you expect me to become? It is not becoming, it is pure being. You can only know, see, sadhana is like that. It takes you back into who you truly are. You become what you always were. But this commotion and all the confusion created by the mind, this has to be somehow tackled and put down. Whole purpose of sadhana is it is to do with your mind. You know, there's this beautiful couplet in Sanskrit that both ignorance and knowledge are in the mind. Mukti is in the mind and bondage is in the mind. Liberation is in the mind, bondage is in the mind. So take care of the mind, and we have a lot of techniques to go into this. So let us never say that we didn't know how to do this. They are all available. And there are masters who have demonstrated this, who have been able to do this. Even a bit of this knowledge coming into our lives will convince us that knowledge can be acquired to this depth. And this is really completely fulfilling knowledge. It gives you complete inner bliss and fulfillment, a kind of satisfaction which, you know, even going to Mars would not get you that kind of satisfaction. Although you're breaking a lot of these limits by doing that. This is a knowledge which brings you complete satisfaction, self-fulfillment. So this is the presentation I had wanted to make here regarding the art of sadhana. We can take up questions. I hope I'm on time.
Before we transition into the next portion of our evening, let's show our appreciation and give a big round of applause to Mataji. So at this time, I'd like to call on Dr. Nick Vogue to come forward and share a brief reflection and response to Mataji's discourse tonight and get us started for those who can stay for a brief Q&A session. Maybe you can come forward to the podium.
Well, I'm honored and thrilled to get a chance to listen to you and learn from you. I came today for myself to work on my practice. I'm fascinated, as an academic might be, by the philosophy, the limits and possibilities of our epistemologies. And that's exciting to me. That's thrilling to me. But right now, what I'm feeling is what a glimpse of what that takes us toward. To be filled up with the experience of direct luminosity. It's such powerful language and phrases that use that kind of gave me a jolt of energy. I don't know if other people felt that. There are certain phrases that just resonated. I was so anxious to capture them all. What I came today was to focus on the art, the practice. In my own practice, I've been studying. Love the study. What I'm working on is the practice to implement that with the techniques, the day-to-day, to have the direct experience of and embody that, internalize that, and feel that for glimpses of moments. When you described how you meditate first and then you study in the pot. I've been able to do the study part. The transition to the practice is what brought me here today. And so your example excites me, your example inspires me. And then again, I felt I had a glimpse like I've never had before of what that looks like and then what's the effect of that. So I want to thank you. One of the things I was thinking about as I was listening, as I'm an educator, I work with, like you, I've seen your videos, with young people today, Princeton students. And I think the self-inquiry that you're talking about, the self-knowledge that is so important, is also so difficult, I think, for young people right now, to look inward. And then in the university, where we value, as you said, this external knowledge, there's another force that maybe pulls the attention away. And it's useful and it's powerful. So one thing occurred to me as I was thinking is, there's the methods and techniques, but I wonder, how do we as educators help these young people have the confidence to look inward, the confidence for that inquiry, that, because they could look out there, and they are looking out there, but how do we help them gain the confidence to look in, is my question to you to start. Why don't I take that, and then
how do we make them do this, give them the confidence to take up this inquiry? See, this is what I do with my students. I can tell you this. I use examples from their own lives and help them think how they can practically apply something of this. Like, for example, my students are very fond of selfies. So I tell them, when you are clicking, when you have clicked your selfie and you're admiring it, just think about it. Who is seeing what? Okay, you are admiring your selfie, and who's seeing what? So they'll say, Mataji, my mind is seeing my body. Who sees your mind? My intellect. Who sees that intellect? Then they will say, awareness. So then, you are the self, not the selfie. You are the awareness in which this entire thing is happening. So this is how I try to draw examples from their own experiences, because students, I told you, the problem is there's too much energy there, and they don't know where to direct it. And that's why, but a whole lot of people are deeply interested in this, I can tell you that. In fact, they have a meditation hall there in NRCV where many students sit and meditate. Yes. Because I told them that unless you are able to meditate, you will not catch this. This is pure first-person existential research. The science of consciousness is like that. So no point showing me fMRI scans of what your brain was doing. I'm not going to believe in that. I want to feel the meditative vibration within you, the calmness and the composure and the stability of your mind. If that is there, you will naturally penetrate into this knowledge. You will get it. At least you will value it, you will understand it and value it above everything else. And that has happened, a whole lot of my students, many of them are in the US just now. They tell me that this was the course they actually remember from their tenure in IIT. They just remember this course because it was on self-knowledge. Yeah. Yes, please. There's a... That's right.
Teenagers.
That's
right.
How maybe just wait until you get the microphone, just so we can get it on.
In this country, as well as in India, the suicidal rate among the teenagers is increasing every year.
Right.
So how this knowledge can be really made available to them in simple terms, which will help them?
Yeah. That's why we are formulating courses on mind management. It's not exactly self-knowledge, but mind management. How to manage your mind, fundamentally. And especially, you see, all mental health problems can be traced to emotional insecurities. So these teenage years, they pass through a whole lot of emotions which they are not able to handle. How to bring some amount of stability there, how to develop emotional intelligence. See, from this self-knowledge canvas, you can formulate a whole lot of courses on mind management, emotional intelligence, and we are doing that. I'm actually working with 5 universities doing all this, and I'm the syllabus creator there, creating the syllabus for these, formulating these courses. And they are floating them in every semester because suicidal rates in IIT are high, as you said. And you know where they shoot themselves? When it comes to suicide, they shoot it themselves here because they want to stop the mind. So mind management must be made compulsory, mandatory in all universities, not just about counseling, but how really to manage mind. What are the factors and the functional classification of the mind, the structural classification, all this must become common knowledge. This is the whole purpose of the science of consciousness, actually, how to live a complete life, a full life. So we are trying to do all this. I think it would be very beneficial if it is introduced in universities here also. And definitely there can be an exchange of information from both sides. We can work on it together. Yes?
Yeah, Namaskar. Thank you so much for this wonderful, full of knowledge talk. Thank you, Mataji. Just one question I always wonder. This is so important, as you rightly said, that going to Mars and all, of course, it's important, but this knowledge of self. What age group you look at it when to start this knowledge? Because with whatever little experience
Yes.
and whatever I have, gathered around and studied, that if this knowledge is given even at a very younger age,
Yes.
that mind is very tender,
Yes.
maybe not ready to, have it. So which age group, or, just if you can just...
The younger, the better.
No, so
Definitely.
younger means like 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah. Even 9, 8, 9, 10
Okay.
should be perfectly fine. Some level of exposure to Upanishads, and that there is such a knowledge available to us, and the inspirational life of great masters. If this much can be introduced to them, I think it will make a huge difference. And children are very sensitive. In fact, I know of one child, he was just, I think, 9-year-old. He went on asking me, but who am I actually? So his parents and everyone told him, "Wait, you are whatever Ramesh or whatever his name was, and you are our child. But actually, who am I?" So some sense of his pure being has come into him. Otherwise, how can he put a question like this? So children are very sensitive. Only thing is a little more information on all this if it goes into them at that tender age, and they are able to do what we call existential inquiry today, which means finding the fundamental facts about their existence. How do I breathe? What is my mind about? What is the actual nature of my existence? Who am I? If these kind of questions are answered through the language of Vedanta, it makes a huge difference in the life of the child. I would point out to Vivekananda Vidyapeeth here in New Jersey. They are instilling a whole lot of these kind of values into young people. It's very encouraging, very inspiring institution. Yeah.
Hi, Mataji. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
your
you.
presence, your inspiration. So I'm an academic at Rutgers University, and I'm
Okay.
studying students' epistemic cognition.
Okay.
So I study this in 9, 10-year-olds, and what we're finding is their thinking is amazing.
Yeah.
They're able to articulate thinking about criteria for knowledge that
Yeah.
we haven't seen before. So given that students have this capacity, their metacognition is really advanced,
Yeah.
what syllabi or curriculum or courses are available for elementary school children? Is there already anything like this?
Yeah, there is something like that. In fact, I would really point out to the syllabus of Vivekananda Vidyapeeth, because they are handling fourth graders, fifth
Yeah.
graders, sixth graders, and with a lot of our scriptural heritage being given to them over the weekends. All the classes are the weekends, so I will procure that syllabus for you if you wish. Definitely, you can work on that. Yeah.
First, thank you for arranging this. This is really great. I've been watching your videos for last 5 years maybe. Every day in the morning when I do Sarvangasana, I watch it. So and I like the new shorts that you've coming out, like the
Yeah.
YouTube shorts. So my question is, sometimes the mind races, keeps on racing, and I've heard that there are techniques to just stop it. Like you could
Yeah.
try some different words, but I've heard like from Sri Ashram
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they've created these techniques that they give you some guru mantra based upon your aura.
Yeah.
That you say those mantra once and your thoughts
Yeah.
stop.
Mm.
Are you aware of any kind of mantras or techniques like that that will just like
See,
break the
I
thoughts?
give two techniques
Mhm.
actually. I don't know if you have seen my guided meditation video. Yes. There I mentioned initially just before you start the meditation two things. One is you must regulate your breathing. When you slow your breathing, you know your mind just calms down. And the slower you breathe, the more the mind will come to rest. Do you know how many times you breathe every minute? See, we don't know that. We've been breathing all our life, but we don't know how many times we breathe in a minute. We breathe about 16 times a minute. And if we are doing a lot of exertion, then it's about 17, 18 times a minute. And you can, but a yogi breathes only about 6 to 8 times a minute. Why? How? When you are deeply concentrated, you will see your breathing comes down to 11 from 16. And if you can reach a stage where really the mind has, you will see your breathing has come down to 6. And for the Samadhivan, Thakur, they could not find his breath when he was in that state. So there is a deep connection between breath and mind. Both are expressions of your vital energy. If you want to handle mind and you don't find any other means to do it, start breathing deeply. First technique. Second technique is, see, the way to tackle mind instantly is you must learn to handle your spine properly. Keep it erect. If it droops, your vitality will droop. Yes. So, learning to handle your spine properly and focusing vital energy at the heart. This is an ancient yogic technique to become aware of your present situation, to calm down, not to be being led away by anger or whatever the situation. So, if these two techniques are practiced, see, of course, you can get mantras and all that, but these are primary, they are always with you. Please see, your body is with you all the time. So, just regulate your breath and keep your back straight. The spine should be held straight. You'll see it changes the course of your vital energy in the system. The pranamaya kosh has to be kept at a certain vibrancy, and you will feel full vitality as a result. Yes.
Curious if you could talk a little bit more. So you talked a lot about these states of samadhi where you're like, there's no more vrittis, there's no more
Yes.
modifications of mind. But when someone who's been in these states and done a lot of these practices goes out into the world, living their life, talking to people, working, whatever they do, they're obviously gonna have thoughts and vrittis. Can you talk about what's different in their everyday life by having those
Yeah, right.
experiences and how it translates or goes back?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. See, once prajna is generated, it never leaves you because it is a dimension of your awareness which is very deep. It's your own awareness. How will it leave you? Just like how if you have felt a real deep sense of aliveness, suppose you went into nature and you just enjoyed a sunset immensely, you felt deeply alive. Can you forget that awareness I'm telling you? You can't. Prajna is like that. When you're deeply alive, which means intensely aware, you will never forget that experience. So you will carry it with you in any situation of life. So all these realized people also did a whole lot of things, isn't it? Look at Vivekananda coming to the West and doing so much. And Thakur, of course, see how many people visited him He would produce, just looking into his eyes, people would go into those states. Chokher chavni, they say in Bangla, which means you just look at the person, the look in his eyes will put you into his state of consciousness. They had that power. Raman Maharshi stood up and built his ashram, you know. Raman Maharshi, who lived in the state of the consciousness of Brahman, still he was active in work. How did they do? They carried their prajna with them. They never lose it because it's your own awareness. How will you ever lose it? It has just opened up to a higher dimension. And it gives you a bigger slice of life. Because I told you it affects your vital energy immensely. There's a deep connection. Showed you that graph connecting vital energy and awareness. When awareness is enhanced, vital energy will just reverberate within you. And if vital energy is worked upon, awareness will unfold. There's a function between the two. So yogis do it this way. And if you can handle your vitality well, you can unfold a very deep level of awareness. You will carry that awareness with you. It's not like something, strange, or they are living a kind of divided life. It's nothing like that. It's their own awareness which has touched a very deep dimension within themselves. So they live a far richer life, happier life, obviously.
Namaste Mataji. Thank you very much for the talk. My question is, the Hindu scriptures talk about grace of God. You need the
Yes.
grace of Bhagavan.
Yes.
How do we invite the grace of God? Is it through humility or
Yes.
good deeds? How do you
Yes.
invite the grace
Yes,
of God?
all of these which you are saying. First of all, there must be a karmic backing, a solid karmic support, which means so much of positive karma in our life that it upholds your noble intentions and it brings the grace of God into your life. And you can do it by prayer. The grace of God comes by humility and prayer. When you ask for it, see, children, they want something and they are not getting it. How they ask parents, isn't it? That's a simple technique Sri Ramakrishna described for us. Just ask him for what you want and you belong to him. It's your birthright. So asking in all humility and childlike simplicity is a beautiful method. So many of our prayers are like that. And I think that's the direct way to approach the higher reality. Yeah.
Hariom Mataji, and gratitude for your insights today. My question is when we're moving towards cultivating sattva in our lives, in my experience, there were certain tendencies that I moved from rajas to sattva, but I think where I am right now is I prefer for my context to be very sattvic, which is I can't always engineer my context, but yet I feel that these sattvic tendencies, although they may be good, they are still a bondage, and I've tried everything to get out of that, so I'm not exactly sure how to go about that. Is that something I just have to wait, and over time it'll just dissolve on its own?
Yeah, in an ultimate sense, what you say is right. You have to overcome sattva also to go into the state of realization. But right now, as long as there is tamas and rajas lingering in us, sattva is to be aimed at. This is what I meant. Without a sattvic life, you can't actually practice meditation. So the problem of how to overcome sattva also comes much later. When you are well established in meditation, you are at the point of transcendence of body mind through the power of meditation, then this question can crop up, that how do I overcome all the gunas? So how do you exactly do it? Yogo yogena gnatavyo, yogo yogat pravartate, which means that state itself will show you how to transcend it, to go to the next state. The state of clarity of awareness itself will point out to the next step. So first you should attain that. You get it? Yeah, that's the way to move forward. Your own mind will tell you in that state because it has become so super sattvic that it will tell you what next. Yes.
So thank you so much. We've arrived at the end of our evening, so this will be the final question. But we want to encourage everyone, even if you didn't have an opportunity to ask a question, to please follow up. There's so many resources, especially online. I don't get, any commission from YouTube or anything. So please don't think this is all some kind of scheme to get you all on YouTube and get your information. But we can use even these tools that can sometimes be distractions and pulls, but we can also utilize them in the best of ways to cultivate awareness. And so we're so fortunate that there's so many teachings on YouTube. There are even YouTube shorts, because as our attention span gets shorter, we need shorter snippets and content and content. So Mataji is so giving of her time and wisdom. So we want to encourage everyone to make ample use of that. So I apologize if you didn't get a chance to ask your question here or to share a reflection, but please, in your own ways, keep the conversations going. So now I'd like to hand it over for one final question, and this will be the last question of the evening.
Thank you so much, Mataji. My question is somewhat selfish, small s or capital S. The consciousness and bliss as a unified experience.
Yes.
My sense personally in practice is that I am not generating that necessarily from my practice, but releasing myself as if I were a radio tuning into unitary experience.
You got it right.
Well, I don't know. That's a kind of paradox. But this is a discussion with some scientists that I discuss consciousness with. Well,
No, you're absolutely right, because
thank
it
you.
is already there before you aim at it. It is already there. You're not generating it. Meditation is not a means to generate pure consciousness. It is a means to unfold or uncover the consciousness that is already there. So you are only working on your mind, making your mind all the more clear, pure, so as to reflect the consciousness that already you are. You are already that. I am that. Have you read the book I Am That? Nisargadatta Maharaj. Yes, it's so powerful. You are already that. So bringing your mind into in tune with it, so it perfectly reflects the consciousness and bliss of the self. That is what sadhana is about. That is spiritual practice, and that is to be aimed at.
Okay, let us again show our appreciation to Mataji, to Dr. Vogue, and to one another for sharing in this amazing space and time together. As Mataji rightfully said, especially in institutes of learning, of higher education, we put so much emphasis into externalizing, right? We put so much emphasis into investigation, exploration, and examination of all of the objects of knowledge out here. But to take even an hour and a half to come together, not just individually, but collectively, to come together, to hold community space, to ask these questions, to delve into these things, to have the courage to do that is no small feat. So I am incredibly grateful to all of you for joining us. I want to encourage you to be grateful to one another, because we create that we hold this space for one another, and we want to encourage you to keep coming back. So please, if you haven't already done so, make sure that you do sign in before you leave, so we can keep in touch with you, so we can let you know about other events like this, and so we can constantly form and reform this community. So thank you again so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.